Listeners everywhere, welcome to The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan, the weekly fix for your screen addiction and a trusted source for discussion of all things film and television. Please keep in mind that for the purposes of this podcast, Joel and Ryan are not acting as journalists, but rather fellow moving picture enthusiasts. All of their opinions should be taken as such. Also, please be warned that while Joel and Ryan may seem like petulant children, they are, in fact, adults who may occasionally use adult language. While they promise to bleep out all the worst words, it's a good bet you will still understand what they were saying. And now, with no further ado, here's Joel and Ryan.
Welcome. Get out your Aquanet. Get those bangs a-going. Welcome to the movie show with Joel and Ryan. I am Joel.
And I'm Ryan.
And I'm Shauna.
That's right. If you are watching this video, then watching this on video, then you know that we are joined by our dear friend back once again, Shauna. Hey, Jack. Yeah.
Good times charm, right?
Right.
We'll see.
And we are, so going off of what we did for the holidays, where we sort of had our little movie club, where we each are assigned a movie, where we are not going to talk about Blitzen or Prancer. I don't what reindeer. I don't even know. See, I blocked it already. I just did
Prancer.
not like that.
Prancer.
No, today we are going to be.
We sort of stole your thunder a little bit. I felt like I looked back on that part of the show, and I feel like there was a great Prancer rant about to come out of you, and we were both like, no, Prancer's good. Like we kind of got in the way of that.
You truly letting loose.
We should have let you have your rant in full.
Yeah,
it was. You could tell it was revving up.
Yeah, Prancer brought out many different feelings in me. Very, very. It pretty much captured any cynical feeling I have towards the holiday. Prancer triggered it. It just triggered it.
That's interesting.
So, I mean, I know that was not the movie's intention. Obviously,
it was quite the opposite.
So, yeah, very much so. But for me, it was manipulative.
Still, the best line in that whole thing is it's Ariana Richards, right? She says, "No, I don't think I believe in Santa Claus." And our hero is like,
yep.
"What?"
Yep.
She has a wordless reaction to it, and Ariana's I really do think it's the best line in the movie. She goes, "Well, think about it," because it doesn't really hold up if you think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't know.
But
I
Prancer.
That tickled me. I thought it was funny.
That's good. No, I remember that. No Prancer today. Today we are gonna go way more into the dark, cynical world of money, and talk about three movies surrounding the lower end of Manhattan, the financial sector on Wall Street. So we're going to be talking about
three Wall Street movies. I'm not sure it was these three movies, Shauna, but this was your idea, wasn't it? Wall Street movies? Where'd that come from?
Well, I have a background in finance. So I was just thinking, you know what? I don't know. This is a thing. Let's take a look at it. And I do have to say, though, having a background in finance, I just thought of this. I have to point out that these aren't three Wall Street movies.
No.
Wall Street is, and then the other two
the others kind of aren't.
Movies.
They're business movies, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm still going with Wall Street theme because they're all related, kind of.
And once we're through this, it's a subject that's rife for different eras and movies. And we thought these three would be fun. They do structurally, they're the same movie, just told in rather different ways with different given circumstances. But the plots are essentially the same for all three, which is kind of amazing to me. And they all came out around the same time. They were all great big hits at the time. So that's neat. We could branch out though. There are other movies kind of about the subject that more modern or more,
Right.
take on different aspects of that. So, but
I would also like to point out really quick, Joel,
Yeah.
that Wall Street and Working Girl were both up for Academy Awards, but I didn't see anything about Secret of My Success.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about that brutal oversight. That boy, you want to rant.
Here we go.
Buckle up.
It's coming.
As I believe I wrote to Ryan, I hate how much I love this film.
Well, let's start with that one. That's number one on the list.
Yeah, that's number one. But first, we have a much more important thing that we have to discuss, because lest our viewing audience be confused, I want to briefly discuss what is going on behind you, Shauna.
Oh, yes.
There is a modern art piece going on back there.
Am I allowed to stand up?
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're doing a renovation in our house. And so our upstairs had 3 bedrooms, my son's, an extra bedroom, and my husband's and my bedroom. And we live in a house that was built in 1968, and it had not been renovated in a long time. We had carpeting in our bathroom, just bad. So now we're renovating, and what you see here is my sleep number bed with no air in it and stuck with the 7 black garbage bags.
Nice.
So
that's what that is.
It was. I'm like, that is a very unique structure going on behind you. I didn't know if that was like a steel girder that was all mangled and like, did you have some sort of structural accident is what I was concerned
it
about.
kind of looks like I might be getting ready for an Alien movie.
There is that. Yep. There's lots of things. I'm sure. Yeah. Lots of little home movie things that you could probably create just from those foam pieces.
Don't turn Alien into a stage play. Joel won't like that.
But this is my house right now.
All right. Okay. So let's.
That showed great discipline, Joel. You resisted there. I'm impressed.
So let's get into our little movie club, and we're gonna take a trip back to the late 80s when shoulder pads, when the big question is what's going to be higher, your bangs or your shoulder pads. And and the first movie we're going to talk about is 1987's The Secret of My Success.
Yes.
Hot
off of Top Gun, actually. Secret of My Success was written by the same guys who wrote Top Gun, Jim Cash and Jack Epps Jr. And you wouldn't know it really from anything that's in it, but it was written by them. And it's directed by Herbert Ross, who's the warmest, fuzziest director really in all of Hollywood history. He's most famous for his Neil Simon adaptations. He and Neil Simon are friends, and the vast majority of Neil Simon plays that have been adapted into movies have been directed by Herbert. But we've talked about his films before. We talked about The 7% Solution in our Sherlock Holmes episode, which is a fantastic movie. We've talked about Max Dugan Returns, one of Joel's favorite childhood films from 1983, which is also Neil Simon, written direct for the screen. That's a lovely film. And this movie's a little edgier because I think the writers bring a little edginess to them, but Secret of My Success is delightful because it's this, I mean, I really think it's worthy of some praise. We sort of want to praise it ironically, but it's completely old school farcical.
Yeah.
There's literally a scene in it later in the film where these people are in this mansion and they're all sneaking around at night in the same hallways looking for their lovers, and it doesn't get more French farce than that.
It goes, the movie
it's classic and it's funny every time.
Michael J. Fox is doing slapstick comedy. There's sex farce stuff going on. There's like regular, just like sitcom moments. And there's like the big boardroom, the boardroom brawling sort of things. There's all, the movie is just kind of, it tries to have all of that stuff.
But
yeah,
Fox is a kind of this is kind of a take on his you know, he was still doing Family Ties at the time.
Yeah,
obviously 2 summers previous he had that huge Back to the Future, which made him a movie star. And this was the first, it's not the first movie he did after that, but it's sort of the big continuation of him as a movie star. He asked to carry the whole movie.
Yep.
He plays this kid from, where is he from? Kansas?
Nebraska? Yep, Kansas.
Of course, just like Dorothy.
Yep. He even
kid from Kansas with all these great ideas for it's more about investment banking than, as Shauna was pointing out, than stock market trading, but he's got all these ideas for how to make businesses awesome. And he's just a little guy with a big dream who comes from the small place to the big town. And it's really about him making good on the promise of all of that in a very light and comedic way.
Ryan, it's kind of like Alex P. Keaton from Hicksville all grown up.
Yeah, it's
right.
Well, I mean, it's so clear. I mean, they said, okay, it's so clear what they went, well, how do we differentiate this character from Alex P. Keaton? Well, let's put a reddish wash in his hair. And that's literally as far as they went. And the reddish wash even sort of goes away by halfway through.
It's a movie star performance. You know, Fox it's not like he was ever a huge movie star. He was in a couple of huge movies, but he gives this, it's him, you know, it's all his charm and all his wit and everything he brings to the table is all on the surface. There's not some effort on his behalf to play some sort of character.
Yeah.
That's anywhere outside of his wheelhouse, but he was delightful at the time, and it's very fun to watch, and he kind of drags you along through the thing, no matter how stupid it gets at times.
It is. So yeah, he plays the dual role. I mean, again, if we're going to talk about Oscar snubs,
yeah, Michael
J. Fox plays both Brantley Foster and Carlton Whitfield.
Right. Whitfield is Brantley. Brantley is Whitfield. And Christy is the bimbo.
Yeah, no, I mean, so we have, we have it. I mean, I love this. I love this film unabashedly. Richard Jordan is just such a wonderful,
he's fantastic
80s, businessman sleaze.
And before you move on from him, his managing partner, played by Jerry Bannon. Jerry Bannon is an actor that I love, that I have worked with, so I want to give a shout out to him, because I wouldn't say I'm pals with him. He's not likely to come on the show. He's a bit of a prickly pear in real life, but he's so funny in this movie. His all right, as long as I get the memo.
He's such a wonderful toady.
Bureaucrat from in and out, and he's obviously, the character's there to show how broken everything is and how impenetrable a world it is for an idealist to come into. It's a metaphorical, silly way to show that, but it still shows that, which is fun. And Richard Jordan as his uncle-in-law, step-uncle, I'm not sure what you would call him.
Yeah, uncle Richard, I mean, in terms of Brantley,
is Aunt Vera really his aunt?
Yes. I mean, he's an uncle. He is an uncle.
Marriage.
Yeah,
that's important, right? Because Jesus,
no blood. Yeah, no blood relatives.
Because if not, we'd be taking this movie to a whole new level.
Right. We'd be in Game of Thrones territory already.
Right.
He even says, oh, you're one of the Kansas Fosters. So it's like, there's definitely a branch of the family that must be like uncle once removed or something.
But it's a mistaken identity for us. As himself, he gets a mailroom job and little more. And so this is based on a true story. This is what Steven Spielberg did when he was a kid. He came in.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He came into Universal Pictures and had a meeting there for some little thing, because he'd been directing a couple of TV things. And there was an unoccupied office that he just took. He just moved in. And he wasn't getting paid, but he was now suddenly he had an office. He had his little card that they never checked the date on, and he could come in and out of the Universal Studio lot freely and just bump into people and meet with people and network with people and get all his sort of projects off the board. And this trick,
he was building his reputation.
Yes.
And that's the thing. You don't need to get paid for that. That'll come later.
Right.
You're just
he was a young guy. He
in.
wanted to make movies. He didn't care if he was starving, and he just, but he was bold enough to, and he's still, those offices are still his. He's took over this office. That's what Bradley does in the movie. He takes over an empty office. He changes his name, and he assumes the identity of a junior executive at this company, and people just, even the guy who insists on the clericalness all being left up is like, well, okay, I didn't get the memo, which he's pissed about, but as long as I get one that says he's here, then that's fine. As long as all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Problem for him is that there's several people in the story who know him already as his other identity. So the amount of running around and hiding behind file cabinets and all this crazy, wacky physical humor, like Joel said, it's an identity for us. It's a very, very fun, fairly funny one for the era, I would say.
What's funny to me is that I did not realize that it was actually based on Steven Spielberg.
It's inspired by it. It's not really his story, but
loosely inspired. Same.
But that idea of him just saying, "Hey, I belong here," everybody in Hollywood at that time would have known that story.
I actually appreciate the movie better knowing that now, because that's an awesome story. My problem with this was, Michael J. Fox comes in and he's never worked a job in his life. He is straight out of college, and he moves into an office and he learns everything in the matter of like a month and knows this business top, bottom, sideways, every which way. I'm like,
he's a super genius for plot related reasons. It's
right.
Not really
and that's just so not realistic. No. So it was hard for me, and I know it's suspended reality because it's a funny show, but
it has a bunch of dumb, unrealistic things. There's love at first sight in it, which isn't something that typically happens. It's a kind of neat sequence, but it's not.
That bugged me too. So
because it's BS. It's silly Hollywood BS. This movie's full of that.
There's a few things about this. Hold on, Joel. I know
you're good. No, you're good.
I can see your face, and I'll give you your time, and you can prop up this movie. But
go ahead.
This movie was so sexist that you either had women as secretaries or you had the Harvard educated businesswoman that just was like, oh, well, I don't know. I think his idea is good.
An utter damsel in distress. It just didn't sort of
business
disguise.
It's not even that. She has the personality of a potato.
Yeah, and we're talking about Supergirl and Legend of Billie Jean, Helen Slater. She's not a wilting violet in terms of her roles, her on-screen roles, any kind. And this character is just
horrible.
She's pretty lame. I don't blame the actor. I think she does with what she can with what's there, but it is written from these two Top Gun guys' point of view. And they only know kind of how to write one thing. They write a perfect fantasy of a woman, which is what Kelly McGillis's character in Top Gun is, or they just write this person that, even though she's put in there as being capable and stuff, she's not overtly sexist, but she's just helpless and worthless in terms of agency in the story. And
and the thing is, really quick,
makes it tough.
It's
she's having an affair with her boss, which you feel like she's not into at all.
Boss. She's, and it's not even her either. It's also Michael J. Fox. It's like every time he stopped by any woman's desk that he thought was pretty, that was it. I mean, this is the epitome of sexism, especially in the 80s.
Right.
And I would have been able to enjoy it, except for, what is the character that's the executive Harvard grad? What's her name?
Christy.
Yes, thank you. but she has so no personality.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I'm like, she's so annoying to watch for me. I'm like, at least give her a personality.
She's cute when she's drinking water out of the water fountain in slow motion, but it should be more than that to capture our main character's imagination. And like I said, I don't blame that actor. I just really think the part is written in this useless way. From scene to scene to scene, she's either this vacuous, empty thing that all of us guys in the audience, like the writers, can mold into whatever we want her to be, or she's just a foil. She's just getting in the way of our hero getting what he wants, which is that's actually more interesting. But
she has two moments. She essentially has two moments where she stands up for, where she actually is a business. But that one time when Brantley's as Carlton is hiding for the first time from his uncle, and goes into her office, and she's like, this isn't the bathroom. What do you do? And
that worked. That scene worked.
And then she gets one other moment where literally she goes, I think Carlton's idea has merit, and everyone gets all upset. So it's like and that is literally the extent of
any interesting thing about her.
Now, I mean, you said she has the personality of a potato. I will say potatoes are delicious. They're good.
Okay, you can say potatoes are delicious, and I will hold on, Ryan. Ryan, you can say, or Joel, you can say potatoes are delicious, and I can tell you, I can see why you like this movie so much, having watched it in the 80s as a teenage boy.
It's right. No, it's for us. It really was tailor-made for us and only us. So I bought into the romance in that movie when I was a kid. You mature and you look at things differently, but. And as far as sexist movies of the 80s, it's just isn't the worst sinner by a country mile. It's way, way down on the list, but you're not wrong. Everything about it is, and it has her in it, and it still doesn't bother to really address it at all. Even if there was some lip service to it,
anything. The interesting thing is, I really do like the slapstick humor and the stuff that,
because the other woman in the movie is a kingmaker character. She's awesome. Kind of sexist cliche.
Oh, she is
just a different kind.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, and the aging, sexually repressed. The house, not the housewife, but the
and she's a good actor too, and brings a lot to that part. But because it's fun.
Yeah,
but
and so that's kind of where I'm saying I don't even know that. I mean, so what? Portray the sexism.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that character, the aunt, was very interesting. I enjoyed watching her.
Mm-hmm.
The Christy, I was like, oh God, she's like.
We said that line that Christy is the bimbo. That's read by the aunt in response.
Yep.
And it's one of the biggest, funniest laugh lines in the whole thing. Christy's not a bimbo at all. Yeah. That's mean, but she's jealous of this young hot girl that's captured this guy's heart, and her saying that in the way she says it, it's one of those sort of perfect sing-songy line readings that I still enjoy. But it's what's alarming about Secret is again, it's not that it's the most misogynist movie. It just shows you just how acceptable the misogyny of that type was at that time,
because it wasn't done in sarcasm. It was done as in, we'll get this audience.
It was not a life reflecting art. It was art. It was art reflecting life, and not even really knowing it was doing it.
And easily and gleefully sort of making it the butt of a joke too.
Yep.
So yes, that was that is problematic. Obviously, all of these things are problematic, and it is important that we bring up these issues. We'll talk about issues like that in the other movies as well. I think John Pankow. This was the first, John Pankow, who
he's great in it. He's the mailroom sidekick.
He's the buddy in the mailroom.
Very fun.
Just like who's You know, it's that class warfare sort of thing going on.
Right. He's the guy. I don't want to say he's content with his lot in life, but he's the New Yorker in the story. You know, all you really have is high finance and this country bumpkin, and he's the guy on the street telling us like it is, and that works pretty great. I have to say.
Wonderful cameo, two wonderful cameos. One by Mercedes Rule as a
not
waitress.
Really a cameo. It's just a bit part. She wasn't famous for anything at that time.
Yeah, that was before cameo.
Yeah. And Bruce McGill as the guy who essentially gives them the whole. Well, if we give you experience,
that is a truly uncredited cameo, and it's brilliant. Bruce McGill is
he's
aces,
so much
man.
fun
He's so
that.
good. I love every time he
scene,
pops in something.
Yeah, his smile when he says, "If we gave you the experience, you take that experience and get a better job." He's like, yeah. Is it wearing that? Yeah, it's so.
It's fun.
You know, one of the things, and we were talking about the far-fetched elements of Brantley learning essentially learning the entire ins and outs.
Yeah,
of the business.
And during one picnic, setting up some multi-conglomerate deal with just a couple of execs, sort of waving his magic wand.
But one thing I think the two of you are missing is that all of these things are possible when you have a David Foster soundtrack to accompany that montage.
Boy, and people can be cynical about David Foster, but boy, does his music and the songs that he wrote and produced elevate this film. It dates it terribly, but I don't know. It already does that to itself. So
I will say, even as I want to talk about all the wonderful things about David Foster in this movie. I will say his romance theme, the mix on it, because of the sort of the plinky plunky electronic piano that he uses a lot in his music, but especially in this, in the quiet, like in the quiet romantic, like when they're falling in love on the Staten Island ferry, essentially, and all those things. His music is mixed way too high. It actually, to me, it gets in the way.
That's really a result, I'll just let you know, of a home video surround remix more than anything.
Okay. Well, I remember that.
It's very typical of Universal films of that time, just so you know.
Sure. And I would, and I mean, obviously I didn't see this movie in theaters because I was pretty young.
I don't remember what the sound mix was like in the theater. I just own a ton of movies, and I know that Universal catalog titles uniformly they have their helicopters and music are way too loud to the point that the dialogue is way too quiet, and there's no normalization happening there. And because of that, you have to turn up the movie to hear people talking. And when the music comes in, it's overwhelming. In an action movie, that's annoying, but your brain adjusts to it. In light romantic moments, it's intolerable. It really does screw things up, but it's not. It's not really a criticism of the music. It's the way
that's what makes this movie even better. Then the one criticism I had, aside from the sexism and misogyny, is
which as 14-year-old boys were totally willing to overlook at the time.
Totally fine. Also, real quick, I cannot think of anything that would cause me more stress as a performer, as an actor, than to say, all right, I just want you to go up and take a drink from this drinking fountain while we film you doing it close up.
All day long.
I would go, the idea of just like, and make it, what are my lips doing?
Because you know that there's reels and reels of footage of her looking ridiculous doing that. And they were only able to use the little bits they had that sort of worked and felt romantic. But I'm telling you, the music... The music
Let's
helps.
Go back to the music. Yeah, the music. And not just
music helps in that moment.
Yeah, and not just his instrumental stuff, which he has, but David Foster is all over a lot of the other.
David's a super producer who produced the Bodyguard soundtrack and is responsible for all the arrangements and the new material and that. He's produced all of Celine Dion's records and just monster albums, especially from the 90s and stuff. But in the 80s, what Dave was most famous for was these soundtracks. He did a couple of movie soundtracks, but they're iconic ones. This was the second big one. The first big one was St. Elmo's Fire. And I can tell you that what they told him was, we want that. We want St. Elmo's Fire. We want the instrumentals to sound like that. We want the hit songs to be released. We want the videos to show clips from the movie. And we want that thing. Just do that again. And it's secret of my success truly is do that again. If you even look at the album, the Night Ranger song, the theme to the song, the movie is the first song. It's the Man in Motion song from the next song, which on St. Elmo's Fire is Billy Squier. On Secret of My Success is Pat Benatar. Yep. And it just follows the exact form in every sort of way, soundtrack and film alike. And the Gazebo song, when Brantley / Whitford is making his big deals, it sounds just like, it's got the little Jeremy Lubbock strings that sound just like St. Elmo's Fire is his famous hit single from that, an actual instrumental song from a movie that was a top 40 hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry. Perhaps if they would have done a good character development with Christy, you would have had your Academy nominees.
Yeah, I mean,
they had a plan for success.
Speaking honestly,
it's not a movie that's even remotely going for that, but
I'm kidding.
I mean, no, I mean, the only person, to me, the type of movie that it is, and we're joking a lot about this, but Margaret Whitten as Vera Prescott as the aunt. I mean, if this were a better film, that would have been the role that could have been recognized.
Right.
I do think the song "Secret of My Success," because there were only 3 songs nominated that year.
That song, it's a really busy, overproduced 80s pop metal song. So that's probably not going to be nominated for Academy Award. But that song is one of the most well-produced, sort of immaculately perfect little pieces of music ever. Yep. We're going to throw it up on YouTube so you can listen to it if you want. It's silly and cheesy. It's Night Ranger we're talking about, and they're talking about making it big in the big city, and
with their flying V guitars.
I don't want to say that it's not silly, but just listen to everything. It even when it's winding down and there's only 30 seconds to go, they bring in the sing along na 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 part, which isn't anywhere else in the song. It's like they just keep throwing awesome pop song ideas at the thing till it can't fit anymore. And I quite dig it. I also like David's synth programming, like his sound of New York, both in that song and in the film, it's got this busy techno sort of, it doesn't sound like anything else that's in any other movie or on any other album at the time. He really created this sound out of scratch. And I think that's kind of cool too.
Yeah.
When you see the mobs of New Yorkers walking down the street, you have and even though his
Skyway thing, I might have to watch this movie again just for the music, because I remember catching it, but
it's cheesy, overproduced 80s pop music
as much as I should have.
It's not special, but this film with like Bill Conti doing the music or something, it would not be anywhere near as hip or cool as it was in 1987.
One little trick that the movie does get away with is using 2 other incredibly popular songs
that aren't on the soundtrack.
that aren't even on the soundtrack.
Yellow's it comes to mind.
Oh yeah.
And Katrina and the Waves, Walking on Sunshine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those songs existed for quite a while before they showed up in this movie, but
they were the 2 best utilized songs. The used in the bedroom farce scene,
and in the limo,
and in the limo, those 2, and then Walking on Sunshine actually has one of my favorite edit cuts in all of movies. It's and then the moment Katrina comes in with the yow is when he jumps and pulls on his pants because he's changing from Whitfield back into Brantley.
Yep.
It makes me so happy every single time. I'm like, yes, you get him, Brantley. You go, Brantley, conquer New York.
Oh yeah, it's more famous, I think, for Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but it was used. Yeah. It was used first here and really well. So yeah.
Oh, I did not realize that. See, that's funny. I was watching it, and that distracted me. I was like, why are they using Ferris
I think if you go back and watch Secret for the first time now, you know that song really, really well, and it's used iconically someplace else.
Right.
Just giving it a little credit.
Right.
And Katrina was just used for the trailer and was on the temp score, and they just were like, well, everyone agreed we just have to pay the rights to this. Yep. This fits perfect.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you hire a big time producer to make 10 new songs for a movie, you expect to use those and not these other things. But they was wise, and Foster, being a kind of musical guy who gets how music fits, he was like, yeah, definitely, that's a keeper. You want to leave that in there.
Yeah,
so that's cool.
All right. So Secret of My Success, I think we all agree, is one of the greatest films ever made. But we have to talk about some of these other films. No, Secret of My Success is a cheesy, fine. It's Alex P. Keaton for 90 minutes instead of just 30.
Yeah, and despite its issues, it is good-hearted throughout, and that really is some cynical, overtly masculine writers mixed with this sensitive director, storyteller who brings out the humanity wherever it's possible to do so. That tug of war is happening in it all the way through the end. But what it just is it just wants to make you laugh and have a good time and feel good when it's over. And it more or less works on that level, I think.
So because The Secret of My Success was this absolute runaway hit, massive movie that was became part of the cultural zeitgeist, the next year Hollywood knew that it needed to darken things up a little bit.
Yeah, well, this film was actually
I'm kidding.
This film's again, it has the exact same story, which it wasn't criticized much for at the time. It is also an identity farce. It's like literally the same thing, just
they flip the guy and the girl.
Well, that's a big switch. And
Tessa's
talking about Working
character
Girl now.
Was very well developed.
Working Girl was originally written where the hero was a guy. That's the one big switch that they made, which makes all the difference in the world. Matter of fact, it's nothing without that switch. It's just Secret of My Success again. Exactly. Maybe a little bit better, a little bit more classy. But if Secret of My Success is a synthed up big drum Night Ranger song, Working Girl's a sort of feminist Carly Simon singer-songwriter song, truly. And that those things represent the films, I think, very, very well, right?
Yeah.
So Mike Nichols, director of The Graduate, amongst many other things. I just watched his Primary Colors the other day. I still think that film is brilliant. Mm-hmm. Again, it's kind of its day like this one is, but still really, really, really good. So he's a really renowned filmmaker coming to this material. And again, it's all written by guys again, isn't it? Didn't the guys write the script? And
yeah, I mean, Kevin Wade is the one who's credited with the with the screenplay. But yeah, I mean, it's Mike Nichols, produced by Douglas Wick.
Yeah. So it's all dudes making the movie, like most of the movies at this time. But there is something that the switching the female to a put upon secretary of the era and having the villain of the piece be a female as well just completely makes it a meaningful thing, and it keeps it a meaningful thing until this day, because how women were treated in the workplace is now front and center. The things that were expected of them, the when you watch it, it's so of its time in a way, although we still deal with sexism in the workplace to this day, but the workplaces that you go into are just full of just women assisting men with everything they do. There's this weird slave ship sort of feel to all those scenes when you watch it. maybe I'm exaggerating, but it really does feel like,
I mean,
here's the poor people over here that are servants, and and it's not there. There's some women executives and stuff. So the film recognizes that, but the culture is completely weighted.
You know, I think I liked this is that it addressed sexism. It wasn't like, okay, this doesn't exist or it's bad really either, you know, but it's showing it.
Well, there's the actual sexual assault scene with Kevin Spacey in the limousine. I mean, that's sort of, she has a punchline at the end and sort of gets the last word on him, but that scene is disgusting and horrible. And it's her coworkers that pimped her out to this guy.
Well, and
they knew what was going to happen, and it's like a joke to them. So there's this fraternity nastiness to it all. Yeah. At the beginning of the movie
but it shows it. I mean, it sets it up. And even though, you know, she gets the last say or whatever, it's a heavy thing. And, you know, and they're looking at it like in life, you know what I mean? This happens and she keeps going. And that's kind of how life is. They didn't sugarcoat that. They didn't change it. And so I'm good with that. And Melanie Griffith, she's got this really soft voice that I remember when I first watched it, I was like, oh gosh. I mean, I was young back in, I don't know, junior high or whatever. It's like, oh man, here we go, a dumb woman in a role. But it's like they did that on purpose, but they let her show that she was smart and they developed her character and all of that. So I don't know.
There's a lot of growth in the movie by everyone involved, which is, again, typically there's none of that in Secret of My Success. There's no growth.
None.
That guy shows up on the scene and he's magical and he just needs his magic to be recognized. She's in the exact same situation. She assumes the identity of another executive while her boss is out of town. Her boss, brilliantly played by Sigourney Weaver. Was that our top Sigourney Weaver performance back in our top 10 Sigourney Weaver episode?
Oh boy. Give me a moment. That's a very good question.
If it wasn't the very top performance, it wasn't the third either. She's a absolute powerhouse of a character, and the performance is just spot on because it's fun and it's hilarious, and yet it's just dark and awful, and you just realize
so real. It's so real.
So believable. Being so broadly entertaining at the same time. That's not an easy mix to achieve.
My mom worked at Pillsbury back in the 1980s. And I remember she had a female boss that did the same thing to her. My mom had a really breathy voice kind of, and came off probably, kind of flighty or whatever. But she was really smart, and this boss did pretty much the same thing to her. I mean, it really shows.
Just held her down, belittled her, made sure that her ego was always in check.
Well, and my mom would give ideas and she would take them as hers. Yep. And it really showed the kind of women on women competition, really well. It's very real.
Which is understandable when you see the world of the story, the insecurity that causes that sort of antagonism and animosity.
Well, and
it comes from.
If you have one woman, if you have one executive position for a woman,
right?
they were climbing on top of each other to get.
You're going to kick, scratch, and crawl to keep it.
Right.
It really comes off well. And Sigourney, I can't tell you, everything that comes out of her mouth is just magic. She's so good in it. It's really, really well written. Like with Helen Slater in Secret. That character is really not well written. When she has a chance to be something decent in it, she manages it because she's a good actor. But right. Sigourney's given this jewel of a role.
Let's go, Sigourney.
Gets every bit of juice out of it imaginable.
It's interesting really quick because I think with Secret of My Success, what it's lacking that Working Girl is clever. It's very clever. And while Secret of My Success was, I really enjoyed so many pieces about it, but it just wasn't clever.
Yeah. Well, and it didn't reflect any sort of reality. They're both fantasies. They both have a silly romance in the middle of it. They both are really implausible. Neither of them. Working Girl a little more than Secret of My Success, because Working Girl at least explains some of it. But neither of them really go into the details of acquisitions and that sort of thing. In any sort of believable way. That's just what they're hanging the movie on. But the feminist slant and the reality of the world of the story that it shows makes all the difference. We should talk about top billed Harrison Ford too. Who's plays the Christie role in Working Girl.
Yeah.
But to Harrison's credit, he knows that he's playing this guy with this sort of, because he's a movie star and he knows that too. He's really good at doing both things. And this role is really important that he understand that he's a sidekick to this hero. The actor has to understand that or it wouldn't work. He replaced Alec Baldwin at the last second because the studio didn't like the idea that they had two relative unknown actors in the leads.
I actually think Baldwin would have been better.
Well, he might have been. He would have been a more believable sort of hot shot, and he would have been a little more on her level. So their relationship, I think, would have been more relatable. I like Harrison as the older guy who isn't even into this shit anymore, and it just like is losing his edge because of it, and it sort of needs her to come along to inspire him in a way. Like I find that is believable and cool. Yeah. That it wouldn't be that way with Alec. That's because they loved him and because they basically told him he had the role and then had to tell him he didn't, offered him the role of Tess, Melanie Griffith's character's cheating boyfriend, which he's great at. Everyone who worked on that movie says, because Alex, he's got a reputation for being him and Edward Norton and for just being hard to work with because he's kind of a perfectionist and a big personality. But they said he was just a dream. He accepted the smaller role and he imbued this guy who's this thug, sort of ugly, cheating guy on paper and brought all this humanity and sort of a little bit of understanding and cuddliness to him that would make you understand where he is as a person. That just isn't there. And that's neat.
I think you're right. That they got that right.
Well, they got lucky with it. I don't think so. You never know. But the two guys in both roles really bring a lot.
They do, but I think you're right. I think the crusty
Alec definitely
Harrison
brings a lot
Ford.
to the ex-boyfriend who on paper truly is just a jerk. If you just look at the lines, you can see what he's saying. There's nothing to it. And we catch him, bonking this other woman, their mutual friend, which is, it's funny. It's played for shock and laughs when it happens, but what's he say? What? I thought you weren't coming home till 7.
Yeah, no class. He just goes, no class tonight?
Oh my God.
And she's like, no class.
It's funny. And his attempt to reconcile with her and stuff is pathetic and sad because we're watching her grow away from this lifestyle and everything about it, and he's gonna be trapped there forever. You just feel that, and there's a sadness to that in a way. Joan Cusack too suffers that as her buddy, the John Pankow character. Basically, they're all the same in each film, truly. Yep. But I do find it funny that Harrison Ford, who's the name above the title star in the film, who's doesn't even show up till 40 minutes into the thing. It truly is the Christie character from
Yeah.
He's not very useful. He steps up in a couple places where he has to, but it's cool to see a movie star play a guy that's as sort of flawed and useless as that.
But they also let the women shine. Yes. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's indicative of that because Griffith was up for Best Actress. Sigourney Weaver was up for Best Supporting Actress, as was Joan Cusack. So, it's the same movie flipped, given the women the role and the men were supporting.
It's the same story, but the movies are a lot different in it. It's because there's just a lot more. Working Girl's even more of an 80s movie, really. If you just want to, like you say, if you want to judge it by the height of the shoulder pads or the hairstyles, I think they're a little even, I don't want to say this for sure because there was hair like this, but I think everybody in the secretary pool has exaggerated sort of That's done on purpose in a knowing way in the film. I think I didn't notice it at the time. I'm just like, well, this is what people's hair looks like, you know. People from the 60s who were writing and directing this, I think they had an understanding that we won't always look like this. This is a little weird, and this is sort of a character
right now.
Of the
this
world
is
of
very much what we are in.
Let's exaggerate the 80s to really make it. And the thing is, but when you were young and watching that, it made it look cool. I remember being like, this movie.
But her transformation is when she tones down her hair, when she becomes a more timeless looking, elegant thing based on the look of her boss.
I also think that there's an element of Staten Island versus the rest of
yes, New York. That's true.
You know, there's definitely a Staten Island element. I missed a little bit. I didn't miss that. I was listening to everything you guys were saying, but I was looking up our Sigourney Weaver show here. But I did want to, my favorite, one of my favorite moments, especially in the Alec Baldwin Melanie Griffith plotline, is that moment at the engagement part, or not the engagement party, but like the rehearsal dinner. The rehearsal dinner thing where they're trying to get him to propose to Melanie Griffith.
Oh my God!
And there's the
doesn't your heart just sink when when you feel that that's about to happen? It's
absolutely,
like,
it does.
No.
And there's a quick shot to the woman that
he was cheating on, who's at this party,
and is absolutely she's destroyed. Because everyone is just like completely ignored her, and they're like, "Yeah, no, wouldn't it be awesome if you got engaged at
to the rest of the world?" She's still just a dirty secret. It's really clever cut.
It's this great little
to
moment.
Include her in that moment. I totally agree.
And it also is again another. It's a nice, quick way to illustrate just kind of what
how we're all the stepping stones for each other, you know.
And Alec Baldwin's character, that boyfriend character, is not a good guy. My other thing is we haven't talked about the Carly Simon song yet. But
that's an Oscar-winning song. It's one of two songs in the history of of award shows to win all three major awards. Only two songs have ever done it. I can't remember what the other one is.
Really?
Ooh,
and Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. Maybe I don't know what the other one is, but only one song won the Globes, won the Oscar, and this is one of them.
I did really thoroughly enjoy, though, the because the Let the River Run was such that was the anthem, that was the leitmotif of the thing. They sort of
Carly Simon is credited as doing the score for the movie, although she had a lot of help with it. It's consistent. The theme keeps repeating. It's really
some of those times where it repeats, like the little elevator. There's like a couple times where it's like the elevator music version of Let the River Run. And it's exactly. Because I'm able to, because there's distance and everything. I actually openly guffawed a couple times. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know that was what they were doing with the music there.
But it's very David Foster-esque, except it is subtler and kind of better in every way, honestly, as a score.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
Subtler, especially. Real quick, Working Girl and Aliens tied on our Sigourney Weaver episode as our
Aliens, Aliens 4-part deep dive is coming in the future.
Yes, it will be.
Like our favorite movie ever, or it's one of my favorite movies ever. So okay, but she's Working Girl. She was nominated for best actor, and best supporting actor in the same year as she was nominated for Gorillas in the Mist. The same year as she was nominated supporting for Working Girl. I don't know. I don't remember who won. Somebody awesome that year. But Sigourney Weaver in Working Girl, she's so good. She's note perfect in every scene. And she was Ripley in the Aliens films, but she wasn't, she was in Deal of the Century and Ghostbusters, and she just wasn't she liked doing comedies and hanging out with comedians, which is why she's in a couple great comedies, but she's in a ton of dumb ones too because of that. And this is a light comedy, really, in the end. It's not more than that, but she's just stunningly good in it. Her whole stuff thing when she's laid up. I also have to say, which is kind of funny, she's got the stuffed animals and stuff. She's this weird, eccentric kind of lady. And there's a picture of her coming out of the helicopter with a big stuffed gorilla under her arm that she got as a present while she was late. She's laid up the whole middle of the movie with a skiing accident, which is how all the farce happens. It's how she loses her boyfriend and her job gets taken over by another person just because she goes on vacation and gets injured, and then she's out of the picture. So all this stuff is able to happen. But her getting out of the helicopter with the gorilla under her arm, and then I saw on the internet where I think it was a troll, but it was still really funny, where it was like, you know, Sigourney Weaver nominated for Best Actress for Gorillas in the Mist with this picture from Working Girl of her in the business suit with the stuffed gorilla under her arm. And I don't know why. If it's a mistake, it's hilarious. If it's somebody pretending to make a mistake, it's equally hilarious. So it's worth giving a shout out to whoever made me laugh out loud that day, because it's hard to do.
Gina Davis won for The Accidental Tourist that year.
Ugh, she's really, really good in Accidental Tourist.
That's a good movie.
Yep.
That's
I always knew that in the back of my mind. Sigourney's probably better, but that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Gina's really good in Accidental Tourist, which is not an easy role to play.
No.
Accidental Tourist side trivia. Kathleen Turner, the studio were insisting she take that role, the dog walker, romantic pixie dream girl role. Mm-hmm. And Turner, when she read it, just said, I'm not going to do that. If you want, I'll do the other role of because she could relate to that. But she knew that, and her agent, I read an interview with him. He knew you're skipping the role that's going to get you all the attention and that everyone's going to love. What are you doing? And she's like, somebody needs to stand up for this woman, and if you cast me in the other role, then you won't have anyone do it. And It was really knowing, and it kind of makes the movie.
Well, and the thing is that Gina Davis plays a very believable ditz for playing, for being an archer woman in the Olympics. And it's on what's that group, the really smart group?
Mensa.
Starts with an M.
Mensa.
She's in Mensa. For being in Mensa and being a really remarkable person, she plays a great ditz. And Kathleen Turner plays a really good, strong woman. You know what I mean?
It's really tough. Yes, really tough. Kathleen saw the truth of it. The suit saw was, we want a star here and here. That
where can we put them in a slot that will make the most money, we think?
Right. So sorry, a sidetrack, but it's worth noting.
Sigourney lost for Gorillas in the Mist. She lost to Jodie Foster in The Accused that year.
Which,
well,
yeah.
What do you even say?
Really bad luck. Who did she lose to while we're here, if you don't mind looking it up? Who'd she lose to in 86 for Aliens? That's her only other nomination.
Before you answer that,
I think it's Cher, but I don't remember.
Nope. What were you going to say there, Shauna?
I don't know if you guys have done this, but I think we should do for a future show movies that won the Academy Award that we don't think they should have and who we think should have.
Shauna, we have a whole thing called the alternate Oscars where we do that all the time.
I want to be on.
If you have a particular category you'd like to add, look it up and pick a couple and we'll do it.
I was talking to my husband about this. We have ideas.
Good.
The winner that year over Aliens, Sigourney Weaver in Aliens.
She was never going to win for Aliens, but she is amazing.
Well, and that year, I mean, listen to this lineup: Sigourney Weaver.
That's just not Oscar.
Kathleen Turner.
Stuff. It's amazing enough she was nominated, and they recognized how good she is.
That year, the nominations were Sigourney Weaver for Aliens, Kathleen Turner for Peggy Sue Got Married, Sissy Spacek for Crimes of the Heart.
I know who
Jane
won.
Fonda for The Morning After,
and Marlee Matlin. No chance. She had no chance. None of those other ladies, all brilliant, had no chance.
Was it Marlee that won it for
Marlee Matlin
Children of a Lesser God?
Yep. All right. So, Working Girl.
I always knew that. I knew she was up against a murderer's row in a way that where you couldn't win, but I just feel bad.
Yep. So Working Girl. I mean, I think we could say, maybe on some levels marginally better than Secret of My Success. I will.
Hey, Secret of My Success came first, and they are both the exact same story. So if Secret gets some credit for that, it has to. It came out a whole year earlier. But I mean, Working Girl with the female at the heart of it, and like I said, the female bad guy that really makes a difference. It's not the jilted ex-lover or any of the romantic people that are antagonists to her. It's her boss and her mentor and the person she's kind of impersonating. That's the bad person in it. And that's a stunning thing that rings true and really, really works. Every way they show the misogynist workplace is enlightening and not just goofy fun.
Yep.
So it just makes everything different. It's wonderful and the fantasy is still rich and wonderful when Harrison's packing her lunch for her at the end of the movie, and when she comes into the office and thinks thinks she's just another secretary all of a sudden, and you see her reactions are so honest and real and amazing. We're talking
about I really love. I mean, we're talking about the denouement of the story. The main story is done, and yet we still get this last little moment of where her character is she's still growing. It's not like she comes in, the thing about Secret of My Success and Working Girl, these movies work. It's a testament to the power of that old saying of, if you walk into a room with enough confidence, people are going to believe you. You can go in, you can go into a party that you're not invited to if you walk in with confidence.
Right.
So it's this great moment where all of that confidence has been stripped away, and yet she has this moment where she thinks she's going to be out in the cubicle outside the office, and she even the great little misdirect with the secretary making a personal phone call.
Right.
It's
a really, really perfect ending to the film that really works a lot.
It's really lovely
because you really feel like, for a second, you feel along with her, like you kind of know better, but you just have that twinge of doubt, like, my God, we're all the way back to square one now. Mm-hmm. It's still a fantasy, but there's nothing like that in mm-hmm. Secret. I mean, it's really well done. And Carly's music,
Let the River Run, Indy.
Let the River Run. Its working title was a Wall Street Hymn, and it really is a hymn.
It really, it absolutely.
In my email to Joel, I called it a gospel rave up, but it really is more of a hymn. It's mm-hmm. And the song goes out of its way to not be about ambition. It tries to be about something different. And the movie's like that too. The movie's about ambition in, New York and in Wall Street, but it's about more than that. It's about something deeper than that, and that's why it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I again, and this just occurred to me, so this might get muddled. But one of the fundamental differences in why Working Girl, even though they're the same plot, Working Girl is a superior film, is because Working Girl is about ambition, where I feel like Secret of My Success is more about money.
Yeah,
it is more about whoever.
Money equals success.
Money equals success.
The S's in Secret of My Success are literally dollar signs on the poster. So,
but
probably have onto something there.
Yeah, but Melanie, Tess is not out for money. She's out for ambition. She's out for she can do this.
Even her big scheme in the film is based on some sort of family connection or some sort of way people can come together to help each other out, which is not really
it's a win-win. It's a win-win.
It's not what
she goes out of her way to talk about.
Mergers are about, mergers and acquisitions. But
well, and if I may really quick, it goes back to Steven Spielberg going into the office, and he was building his reputation. It wasn't about money. It was ambition.
How can I get people to listen to me?
Yeah. Well, and building his idea, building what he could do, getting to that point, which I think Secret of My Success lost that kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, it played it all for laughs. I mean, the whole thing, it took all of that and said,
it doesn't take it seriously.
How do we make
and I have to say, Working Girl, when we know how mergers and acquisitions work, Working Girl as a romantic fantasy where this young ambitious girl makes good, what we know about that world of that story, it's still sort of laughable and out of touch with what the reality was on the ground, I think. And they both have that problem. They're both Hollywood feel-good movies. We've talked about, in fairness, the substance involved in Working Girl, and it is all there. It's why I think it's a great movie, but
it wants you to walk out feeling good.
it's still using this high finance world, which was a ruthless, unfeeling, uncaring place, and is to this day. It's even worse now. It's the idea that this happy thing could take place there with the fraud involved or so. It's laughable if you break it down. If you do what Ariana Richards suggests in Prancer and just think about it.
You're right.
It doesn't really work.
The interesting thing is that I think that's partly why nobody really won for it, because you know what I mean? They put a sugar
the song won, but that was it.
And I would say, I think that's why Wall Street did so well.
What a perfect transition.
Thank you.
Stealing Joel's job.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not needed. Okay, go ahead, Shauna. I'm not. Go ahead.
You can run the show. You got the segues down.
Let me just kick back here.
All right. On that note.
Yeah.
I am so glad that you guys assigned me Wall Street. I am so glad. So I have to preface this by saying partly the reason that I suggested that we go this route is because my background is finance. So I went to get my MBA in finance. And when I was in school, I actually was in a class that went for an entire year. It was called the Aristotle Fund. And it was started by George Schultz, of this founder of Best Buy, donating $1 million to St. Thomas that the students would invest as if they were an investing house.
Neat.
It was the most hellish class, anything that I've ever done. So competitive, just crazy. I mean, you had to get up in the morning, get on your computer, follow the stock market, and you went to bed following the stock market, because you were 100% responsible for the stocks that you bought through this class. So I ended up going into finance in corporate finance. Thank you. And so I got out of the whole stock market thing because I mean, my little bitty taste of it was so crazy. It was not for me. But I appreciated Wall Street because of that class, and I understand it. And watching what they did in the financial world and how they told the story and how complex it is and how well they got it across. I mean, it was their finance in this story was really smart. It was about a financial transaction.
Right.
The whole story is about one financial transaction, and where the other two, they're fun, and we kind of went really light and not believable to Working Girl, more developed, but still not a finance movie. This movie was about Wall Street.
Yeah.
And so
it's a tonic for the fantasies that the other movies are, because this film is the same thing. It's got this young, ambitious cat who wants to rise up through the ranks and has to go to extreme measures to sort of break through and get people's attention. Like, all that is the same, but the world he inhabits, it feels much darker and more believable. And just from the get-go, even when the plots sort of match, but this story turns out to be a nightmare of obsession and ambition, where the other films are dreams with happy endings.
Well, and it's so interesting.
It's very powerful in that way. And like you say, the finances, right?
Well, Gecko's character, I mean, his main line that came out of this movie was, greed is, for the lack of a better word, good.
Good. It's the most famous speech. It's one of the most famous speeches in all the movies.
Greed is good. And I mean, they played this out so well, because I'm getting goosebumps a little bit. It's so good. The story of this is so good, because the thing is that, so having Bud, the young Charlie Sheen, trying
he's our hero, Bud.
Right. And he sees Michael Douglas's character
Gordon Gekko, very famously.
Gordon Gekko. What did they call him? An elephant? Did they call him an elephant? It's the big guy. The big guys they're trying to get. It's kind of, I think about like.
Oh yeah, the white elephant. It's the rare thing that the hunters are trying to. Yeah. Yes.
Right, and it reminds me of like in Las Vegas, and they call the big gamblers whales.
Yeah.
You want the whale. You want the whale to come. You want the white elephant, and Gekko, for whatever reason, he can do no wrong. This guy is so
he cheats.
Rich. What? Right. And he came from like a community college, I think he said at one point. And, how is it? This guy must be brilliant. How is it he does this?
He is brilliant, but he's successful because he cheats.
Right. And he doesn't get caught. I mean, they built this whole thing, how they get the lawyer in there and they get Charlie Sheen to sign that he'll never take, Martin Sheen with them, or not Martin Sheen, Kirk Douglas. No, Douglas. Michael Douglas.
Yeah.
Sorry. Michael Douglas. Anyway, just how they propped this up and showed how this was possible was so remarkable to me and good. I mean, to have Charlie Sheen then get into insider trading, and it wasn't even just about, what did you hear? It started out that way with his father's company, which is really hard to prove, and it's okay. But then he had him following this other guy,
Terrence Stamp's character, Lord
Wildman.
Whatever.
Wildman.
Yeah, Wildman. Yeah.
And that's, he's actually going out and pursuing this guy.
Another really, really rich investment banker from England who
kind of screwed Michael Douglas.
But in a business way, in a legit way. He's painted as a legit business guy who.
He was smarter. He outsmarted. Yeah. So anyway, so it goes back. So
Stamp's great, by the way. Just his voice when he says Gordon's name, he only says it once, Gekko, and he says it with such contempt,
disdain.
Exactly, and he plays it basically an aristocrat. So he's this thing where like he saves the day in many respects, that character in the film, but he still is this, I was born sir, what's this, you know what I mean? Like you community college kids,
you're new money. You're new money. I'm old money.
You have no idea what it means to be anointed by God like I am. It doesn't say any of this.
Will you ever know?
It's all in the performance, which is fun. Stamp is quite good.
It's the battle of the egos, really, with these two guys.
Yeah. And
Bud, Charlie Sheen, just wants to get in there. Just give me a shot to even be close to it. So they've got him, getting into this the insider trading knowledge. And so
he basically goes from being a hedge fund manager to being which it's not, they didn't quite have at the time, but that the equivalent of that to being a private detective, just hunting down insider information so that they can make the big deals based on it. It's quite a transformation. Well, and he's let into this world. Like now you're on the beach. Now you're at our dinner party. Now let me set you up with this most brilliant girlfriend that I think you'd like, that I used to screw around with.
Your new apartment.
Let's get you addicted to all this stuff.
Hold on, Ryan. That's what I mean is that, so, Bud gets in there with the little bit of information that he knows about his dad's company. And Michael Douglas sees this and he's like, okay, let's, this kid's willing to bring this out.
Right. Douglas doesn't think he's brilliant that he brought him inside information. What he likes is that he was corrupt enough to bring him inside information that he knew was coming from his father.
So he knew that Charlie Sheen was giving him one information, screw it, that's a dog. 2 information, screw it, that's a dog. 3 information that nobody knows. But Gekko finds out that it was his father's company. Yep.
Suddenly Blue Horseshoe loves that.
Right. So all of a sudden Gekko is going, you know what? This kid, he's willing to go across the line. Let's push him and see how far he'll go.
And how much we can make off of him.
Here's the carrot. Here's the carrot. Look at my life. Look at my life. All you need to do is go investigate that guy. it's not that big of a deal. Nobody will know. I mean, who's going to find that out, that you were personally investigating this guy, but sign this paper so that you don't take me down with it. Okay. So all this is going, here's Dad's company.
Right. And watching, can I just add one thing? Watching Charlie Sheen play the same game on James Spader, his friend from school, that is being played on him is choice. It's
and
really
James
illustrates how he knows it's a scam, and yet he's using all the same phrases and stuff to sell it to this other guy who's clearly very nervous about it and everything else.
And I love that it's James Spader, because he plays a sleaze better than nobody, but he's not in this one. He's like a scared guy, like, oh, what do I do? Okay, so back to this. So here we've got Dad's business, you know, Martin Sheen, his own real dad. Here's his business. Dangle the carrot. Go follow this guy. I've pushed him, and this whole time I'm building up this world. Don't you want this? Daryl Hannah's your girlfriend. She decorates your apartment in this over the top, most chic 80s, amazing, crazy stuff. It's
kind of clever from a decorating standpoint. She jokes about the exposed brick wall being a lame cliche, and then they build off that cliche as like a play on things when she designs. So even from a designer standpoint, there's a knowingness and a very smart bit of storytelling going on there.
It's so smart.
Yeah.
So all of this is going on. He's got his girlfriend, you know, and they finally bring in the board members and his dad to try to sell them on Gecko being the guy that can bring this company to the next level.
It's an airline. It's a small airline, which is important because those in the late 80s, those were all dying like crazy. And, you know, he's got this idea where he can save it. He can be a hero to his dad, he's trying to impress. He can make a deal that works for everybody, very much like Tess and Working Girl. Bring people together to make a company work.
He's thinking it's a small deal, but it could go huge. And he's in with Gecko. I have facilitated this amazing deal.
But either way, it's important to note it's a rescue plan. It's not a buy off, sell off, make as much money as you can by breaking the thing up. He's come up with his big scheme is a rescue plan.
So stop, Ryan. That's the thing, is Gecko sold it as, I will bring this company to an unbelievable level, and it will be awesome, and everybody will be great. But he's tricking Bud, who's along with this. That's why he introduced his father to it. And he's thinking, I'm going to be this amazing guy. But the reason
we could be wrong, and we can't take Gecko at his word.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Hold on. Sorry, I'm on a train of thought and I need to go
ahead.
with it. So the thing is that Bud sold this deal to Gecko because of the overfunded pension plan.
Yes,
this is very important. This is very important. And if you're not in finance, you probably, he says it twice. It's so important that it's brought up twice in the movie. And if you're not a finance person, you probably don't understand the reason why this is important. So this company, you know, they're selling it. We'll make all these changes. We'll bring in this amazing, you know, technical stuff that's going to give us this competitive edge and all of that. And Gecko's selling all of this, and everybody except for Bud's dad is like totally on board. Like, this is amazing. That's great. And Bud's dad is like, you know what? No. So he leaves the meeting, and then Bud goes to a meeting because of James Spader, wasn't it?
I think so.
James Spader brings him to a movie where he finds out that they are going to buy this company, dissolve it, sell off all the assets. And in order to do all of this, then they will access the cash from the overfunded pension
plans. Yep.
So in all of this, after all that happens, Bud's dad's company will be sold, and all of the employees will be laid off, and they won't have a pension plan. This is greed and badness personified in the worst way that you could ever think. And what it is that they took Bud And they pushed the line, pushed the line, pushed the line, pushed the line. Are you going to screw your dad to become a stockbroker of this level? I mean, this is like the biggest line that you could cross. So this is where he's put to. He not only will all of those people be unemployed, they will not have any pensions because Bud screwed his dad. So, I mean, this is really remarkable in the level of like greed and evil. This is really good. It is a smart movie.
Oliver Stone, his dad was a floor trader on the New York Stock Exchange. So he gets a lot of, he gets a lot of inspiration from that. And they also had a really, really smart consultant on it that sort of came up with this exact thing that you're talking about, because the film doesn't, like I'm glad you told me to shut up, because what you just said there is really important, and the movie doesn't come out and explain that to you. It just doesn't come out and explain that to you the way a conventional movie does.
All of this. It assumes that you know all of this, and really there's not many people that understand the complexities of finance. I mean, I wouldn't have if I wouldn't have gotten my MBA and been in finance. But
the deal is, it's what do we do so that we can steal the pensions? That's really all. That's really the gist of it.
And the whole point of this financial transaction is to steal that cash, overfunded pension plans. But you have to screw your dad and all of his employees to do it. I mean,
all these people that you grew up around, these airline workers that you know all their names.
Met at the bar and you drank with, and these people, the board members that you sold this whole plan to.
Their kids that you went to high school with. All these people are going to be totally screwed by this.
Amazingly screwed.
And Gecko isn't testing him like the devil. He wants the money and he expects him to play along.
Right.
Why not? You've broken every rule up to this point. You know what I mean? He knew he might be upset, but you could tell he's a little surprised when he comes at him, pissing at him. He's like, this is it. You want to be a player. This is how we do it.
Well, and it's really interesting.
There's money there. We're taking it.
It's another scene that it's really interesting to me was when Gecko and Bud met in Central Park, and Gecko punches him a couple times.
Yeah.
And the thing is that, these are a few $1 million to Gecko. It's not the end of the world. It's not going to change his business. He's, when he's thinking about this, he's just really pissed that Bud didn't follow through. I saw this in you. Why did you let this down?
It is a classic villain performance where the villain really doesn't see himself as a villain at all. That's why these always work best. He has Bud sign the thing, but he's not setting Bud up to take a fall. He really sees himself in him and wants to mentor him and bring him along. That part of the relationship is legit.
And he's looking at how far he can push Bud. Okay, Bud, you're going to take the fall for this if the push comes to shove. Are you okay with that? Yeah, I'm going to sign it because I want that money.
In the original script, Bud was having an affair with Sean Young's character, Michael Douglas's wife, and there's all this other stuff that goes wrong.
That's too
late
much.
In the film. Well, the movie doesn't need it. It would have made it 20 minutes longer, and apparently
it would have been distracting.
They got Daryl Hannah doesn't like herself in the film, and she doesn't like the movie at all. But she's quite good in it. She's antithetical to kind of Daryl Hannah's this earth mother kind of giving person, and she plays this yuppie sort of social climbing
she's selling her soul too.
I think if you have an affair, I think that relationship and its consequences that are very clean in the story don't work as well.
Well,
but really they wrote out the affair because Sean Young was just completely psychotic on the set, and they just
she is.
Well, yeah,
they just kept writing out her stuff.
Sean Young wanted to play the Daryl Hannah role,
right?
Oh,
yeah, so kept wanting.
And showed up still wanting to do it.
Yeah, trying to get Daryl Hannah fired so that she could just step into the role.
And that's why she got casted out of the movies.
Well, she's in there, but yeah, exactly. She's fourth build or
future.
something, and she just was
She
written
was
out
too
of the film.
difficult for her own career. I'm sorry.
But it helps. It helps the
Not
movie.
that good.
It helps the movie. It keeps the relationship stuff that's in the movie clean and clear,
Right.
because it's very clear what Hannah and Bud's relationship are.
Yep.
And it also, frankly, keeps the mentor, hero relationship, villain relationship very clear too, because it doesn't have all that personal mess in it. It keeps it about the business and about keeps the relationship on that level, which works really well. I'll talk a little bit about the actors. Charlie Sheen, this is his best movie. His second best movie, I guess, is the other Oliver Stone movie he had just done, Platoon. And they're both as good as he's ever been. The studio really wanted him to choose somebody different for Wall Street. But he's just like, I don't know. I think, Charlie's sort of a tool, and that's sort of what this guy is. Yeah, he makes the right decision, but there's a naivete and a stiffness to him that I think works for the character. Because I'll tell you, Tom Cruise wanted to do this film, and if Tom Cruise were in it, it's really, really good. But if Tom Cruise were in it, it makes you weep a little at how much better it would actually be, because Tom Cruise is really perfect for this kind of role and is so much better scene to scene than Charlie Sheen is in anything. Tom is an actor. He's not just a tool who is reading the lines like Charlie, but like in Magnolia, wasn't it Magnolia where he played a real just kind of slime? Well, he's believable. Yeah, but he wasn't going to play the Michael Douglas role. He was going to play the Charlie Sheen role. No, I know. Yeah. But that's what I mean. If Charlie Sheen is innocently slimy. Right. In that role. Right. He's legitimately slimy, and he kind of doesn't know it. He thinks he's acting like a cool guy, and he comes off like a dork. Right. There's a value to that in Wall Street. Tom Cruise, though, has made a career out of playing guys who... I know, but I don't know that Tom Cruise would have been as believable being kind of oblivious. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. I think that Charlie Sheen actually nailed it because of that. I agree.
Here's what I would say.
It's understated. That's the one thing Tom wouldn't have brought to the table that's better than Charlie Sheen in every way is obliviousness. Charlie Sheen, I agree with that. Tom Cruise is kind of overstated. Charlie Sheen managed to get the understated obliviousness really well. I think
here's what I would say on that is Brantley Foster would have never gotten himself in that situation. So
I think you're right. And Michael Douglas won the Oscar for this. It's his only Oscar acting award, and he won the Oscar for producing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest as well.
Do you know who was supposed to be Gecko?
A lot of people. Al Pacino was the closest to actually doing it.
No, Richard Gere.
Well,
Richard Gere was on the list.
Gere didn't want it. Beatty wanted
Warren
it.
Beatty would have been okay if he could have brought himself to do it, but Beatty's the hero of his own story in a way that I think would have gotten in the way.
Yeah.
Douglas doesn't play the guy like a villain, but Douglas producer, actor Michael Douglas reads that script and understands that the guy's the villain in a way I don't think Beatty would ever would. I think Pacino would have been great. Richard Gere would have been terrible. Although Richard Gere's in a really good insider trading movie that came out later, he would have been terrible. He makes a terrible villain.
Yeah. He's too Buddhist.
There's something about him that just doesn't fly. And he's a decent actor. He's a very good Lancelot, as Joel is always pointing out to me and reminding me.
Yes.
Really
an American Lancelot, but nonetheless.
Really quick, back to the movie.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So I think partially to how this works better than Working Girl did is that they let Charlie Sheen take the fall.
Yep.
And that's partly why I like it so much too.
He fixes things for Blue Star Airlines, but for himself, he's destroyed.
Ryan. So the interesting thing is that they let him be the oblivious slime dink and take the fall for it. They wired him and got him to get Gecko, which is good, but he didn't get out of jail. He's still had to go to jail. He had to make the decision that, his dad, over all of that greed, he still went to jail.
Yep.
He got Gecko, but you don't see it. And at the very end, you find out that his dad tells him that Wildman will hire him in the airlines when he gets out of jail. But it's so understated and like you barely notice it.
Right.
So while it is a good thing, it's not, oh, yay, everything.
Well, even Martin Sheen and the father-son thing, the real father, real son, which is sort of a gimmick, that it just works like gangbusters in Wall Street.
So
Martin
good.
Sheen says, maybe a few years, maybe a couple years in jail. Maybe it's the best thing for you, he says.
And as it turns out, it's like real life, guys.
That is
right.
80s fatherhood right there. That is
right.
That is 80s,
but he has a point.
Reaganomics fatherhood right there.
You know, bring you back down to earth and make you understand that to work for a living is to work for a living. Like he Sheen's character represents that a little too much beyond even being a character. He's there to represent a philosophy, but it's really well handled by a really good actor talking to his actual son.
And the interesting thing is the parallels to real life. I mean, really, Charlie Sheen and the craziness that became his life. And now you can see him in, I think, an insurance commercial where they're in it together. And it's like, I don't know, it's after Wall Street. Here we are. It's an insurance commercial.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, so those are our 3 selections for the movie club. This, So I hope you enjoyed our discussion on those films of Wall Street. And it seems sort of appropriate that that on a Wall Street type episode that we would round out the show maybe with another trip with the Tickertainment Trend Tracker.
Bye, bye, bye! Bye, bye, bye! Sell, sell, sell! Bye, bye, bye!
Hey!
Sell, sell, sell!
It's like Michael J. Fox in Secret to My Sex. Secret to My Sex. Secret to My Success.
Bye, bye, bye!
Might as well have been Secret of My Sex.
Right.
It's the sex scene. He lives in a cheap New York apartment, and his neighbors are having sex, and he jokes around by conducting it. It's pretty humorous, actually.
Kind of like Joel. Bye, bye, bye.
Good bit.
Yeah.
All right. So yes, yes, I know. Okay, here we go. The studios hoarding content for their own platform, like Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, Showtime, HBO Max. It's a signal that we're heading into a new era of vertically integrated entertainment providers that looks a lot like the early days of the Hollywood studio system.
Well, it's all about control, and it always has been for them. When you buy that VHS tape, it used at the video store or whatever, or you take the DVD home, you have control of that till the end of its life. And what the studio wants is you to have to come to them for everything. And so even though the streaming technology has made in a way movies far less profitable, at least for studios, what they've realized is that being their own streaming company, having control of their own catalog and being the only place you can come to for that catalog, the exclusivity of it, which Disney was ahead of the mark on, because they've always believed more in exclusivity, I think, than other companies have. Just shows you that. But it's about control in an ugly way. As a movie consumer, you're losing control. You don't, when you want to go, what's the example? I use it every time we talk about this. Truly, Madly, Deeply. When Alan Rickman died, all my liberal art house movie film fans, their favorite Alan Rickman movie is not Die Hard. Sorry, actual movie show with Joel and Ryan fans. Their favorite is Truly, Madly, Deeply, where he plays a romantic ghost. It's a fantastic movie, but they all wanted to watch that movie. You know, that's the natural reaction, is to dive into somebody's stuff when they're gone, and they couldn't get it. That's a Miramax. It's not really. It's a British company that Miramax distributed that was then owned by Disney when they acquired Miramax. So it's essentially a Disney controlled film, and it's nowhere. If you wanted to buy that on DVD, you had to spend $120. You couldn't stream it any place. They just couldn't watch it, and they were up in arms about it. Well, how can that be? It's great. And one of the reasons is because it doesn't have a high definition transfer of any kind. It's literally the shape of an old CRT TV. And people, when they play that stuff on streaming services, call in and complain about it. So we talked about that with From Earth to the Moon, right, Joel? They changed the look of From Earth to the Moon. Ridiculously, they brightened the colors, they changed the contrast, they chopped off the top and bottom of the picture so that it would fit a normal TV screen. They redid all the special effects and then took the special effects credits out of the credits of the people so that they wouldn't have to pay residuals to them. The whole thing, this is HBO and Warner Brothers in this case, the whole thing is sort of despicable and awful and non-artistic in every way you can think of. And that's it. It's not the idea that Disney can have a channel with all the Disney stuff on it that's repugnant. It's the ugly side effects of that, and the hoarding of that control, and the not seeing it as something to share with people. You know, that part is alarming, and there's just constant examples of it. Do you feel differently?
No, I think it's clearly a bear market thing. Shauna, what are your thoughts on it?
The control is what I have a problem with too. They
own the stuff, but they don't think it belongs to you in any way. That's the important thing.
It's art. You know what I mean? It's art. I'm good
part
art,
of it is
art, crappy art, you know, whatever it is. It's, if you've got I say this, I paint watercolor pictures. And I always say, you know what, it might be bad art, but it's art if you have somebody that wants to consume it. You know what I mean? If it goes in the garbage, then it's not,
even
it's
look
not
at
art anymore.
Sean, I would go further than that. You can take the business entirely out of the art, and you still have art.
Right.
The percentage in Hollywood movies that is art or that is commerce, you know, I get it. It varies widely. But if any part of it is art, and the art is being, you know, like I said, hoarded, held back, controlled.
That's what
I don't want to get into any Dr. Seuss debates, but
the thing is, though, is when you start controlling the consumption of art, it affects the art itself.
It does.
And so when you get so much control over it, the creativity, it becomes a mass production. It becomes very, you know, here is the plan. This is what we're going to do. And I don't know, it kind of kills the creative purpose of the art. And that's the unfortunate thing. I mean, yes, okay, you can control it, and that sucks. And I don't like the idea of it. But really, the unfortunate effect of it is that it kills the creativity of the art.
I think the studios, I think their response to that would be, you know, by keeping everything in-house means that we'll be able to afford to do more art. We'll be able to fund other filmmakers, and while
there's no doubt that streaming services, their convenience is awesome.
And and obviously we'll have to see how all of this plays out. You know, you know, we are talking, by keeping all of these properties, you know, in-house with each of these, you know, streaming services and essentially production houses saying we're going to produce stuff and it's going to be accessible only through our portals. You know, Yes, all of that is the concerns. I share all of those. However, I mean, I think the success of WandaVision on Disney Plus, you know, that a type of show like that would never get made anywhere else. But for
it's not really true. You were watching that FX show, which is similar in a lot of ways, Legion. The other, the art happens sometimes. Maybe not in a you know, creative, amazing, weird, and alternative stuff happens in all different places. WandaVision needs to not be a movie. It needs to be, you know, it needed to be a TV show. There's all these things it had to be before it could take the chances that it took. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that it's bad or that it isn't kind of right where it should be and is kind of the perfect thing. I think I agree with you on that. I'm just saying that, you know, it's Marvel's not and Disney's not a place where they're nurturing this brilliant original art, even if it's still happening. There's this tug of war and pull at it all the time. All they care about is that it's exclusive to them and that it'll gain subscribers by it existing.
The thing is, I agree with you, Ryan. And the thing is that when you get these big conglomerates that are the ones that are saying, okay, we have all this money and we're going to make all this stuff, they become the people that you have to get ideas by. And mm-hmm. So when they start looking at data and saying, okay, this works, that doesn't, then everything kind of starts moving towards what works under them. And
well, sure, but that's been the way things have always been.
I know, but
with or without streaming,
Michelangelo still had to run things by the Medicis.
I totally agree. And maybe there will be other ways for it. Maybe there will be other ways to come out, you know, and break out of that. But right now, in the way that it's moving, because we're so shut down, and it only is going through these avenues. What I am hoping is that when things open up and they realize that people are sick of just this, that's where the creativity comes back in some way. I don't know how it will be, but I bet that will happen because it will change. I mean, we at some point will be back in the movie theater, or we'll be. It's interesting.
Although it won't be us, it'll be young kids right now. It'll be whatever they're into. That's what will be catered to.
Right. The interesting thing is that we were Joel and I were talking about this, and I was saying that it reminds me.
I gave her a preview before you, Ryan, so she could think about it.
It's kind of like the recession, you know, the Great Recession. And when they were going through the recession, everything was clamped down, you know, and nobody had any money and only certain avenues came out. Once it came back, you know, when things started coming back, it was roaring, you know, like, woohoo, it was a creative boon in this country's history. And I'm wondering if once we kind of come back, that actually won't happen. I don't know what avenue it will take, but maybe it's a good thing. Maybe,
it's going to be, Shauna and I were talking before you came on the call, Ryan. It is going to be fascinating. There is the type of content that is going to be coming from creators as we come out of this pandemic it's going to be exciting. It's going to be fascinating. I am total
bye.
But I think
I didn't mean to trample the idea that this WandaVision, which is really creative and risk-taking and amazing, still exists in this atmosphere that I'm decrying. It's important to know that the artists are still out there making stuff that's awesome. Joel's totally right about that, and that's good. That's exciting.
But it's how are they going to get to the market?
That's the question. And the studio system, and that, you know, it is. And I think that's accurate. The trend tracker is accurate in this, that, you know, it does sort of mirror that old studio system, and great things happen under the studio system in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. The difference is this. The difference is that the studio system had a room full of guys making big decisions like this. What is at the top of the chain in any of these corporations, whether it be Viacom or Disney or Time Warner,
you go up to the top and there's still a boardroom at the top, although none of them know anything about making movies. What's above them is their stock prices.
Yeah.
And that is it's the stock prices and Spotify and whatever streaming service you want to use. It's the stock prices calling the shots. And that is a completely inhuman way and commerce only way that has to trickle its way down before you can get any sort of worthwhile storytelling. It's encouraging that we're still getting it, but it is alarming that that's where that the buck stops with the bucks, and that's it. There's no people up there who give a crap about what we're watching on TV. Only what's happening on the stock market.
We need more Tess. Yeah, we need more Tess McGills and less Gordon Geckos.
Right.
But I do have hope, because I think everybody, we're forced to this, and that's it. And you don't have a lot of choices. And everything's becoming kind of like everything else. And once we're allowed to get out, I think people are just going to push for it. Like, you know what? Don't tell me what I want to watch anymore.
We'll see. I like that idea very much. I don't can't bring myself to believe that that'll be the way. I really do think that the biggest part of the art working for the money, the biggest part of that is the P.T. Barnum, give the people what they want. People want trailers that over explain and show you the whole movie. That's why they make them that way. People want movies that lack a certain amount of substance so that they can just escape into fantasy worlds and not have to worry about their actual complicated lives. People want that stuff. And I do think that corporations are, for the most part, good at giving people what they want.
Well, and that's what they want.
Because that's what they use. That's the barometer they use to judge the success of anything, is whether the people accepted it or not.
And I think people want that right now, because we're living in hell.
Yeah, right.
We
that's
need
true.
a salve to get us through this time.
Yeah.
But when we actually can get out and participate in the world again, I think the creativity is going to come back and be like, all right, you guys, we got to start thinking about stuff again. I don't know.
And we do have a lot of choices in content. The competitive nature of the different streaming services for your attention is not necessarily a bad thing for artistic achievement either. So
right.
There's some hope there as well.
Okay. Well, hold on a second. Let me check. Okay. Do we have time for one more? Tell the trend tracker wants one more. I lost my my clock here, so
no, we're good.
Been able to track. Okay, so this one is okay. Yeah, this one is about James Cameron released Avatar again, only in China, solely as an effort to regain the top box office of all time spot.
From what, Avengers, whatever?
From Endgame, yeah, from Avengers Endgame. How are we on re-releasing movies just to try to get those quick bucks to maintain any sort of spot?
I don't care about that. But that's a trick that they've been trying for a long time. I remember they re-released some Ron Howard movie, like just to push it over 100 million, because that, it cost them to do it. They made no extra money. They lost money doing it, but there was this prestige thing about it coming in at the $100 million mark.
That way
it's we can say Ron
Howard has had, has had X amount of movies of that have made. Yeah.
I don't mind. I do not mind one bit that Avatar be the worldwide box office champ over something as completely disposable as Avengers Endgame, but it seems silly, especially because international box office, what is that? It doesn't mean anything to China. It doesn't mean much to the people around here. None of it takes into account inflation, which if you do, Gone with the Wind still the most seen and most profitable movie of all time. So I'm not sure. You'll never achieve numbers like that. People don't everyone in America saw Gone with the Wind. Like literally they all saw it. There was nobody who didn't see it. That you'll never get that again. People just are too compartmentalized. So I don't hate it, because who cares? It's just rich people messing about, but
not until they make Not until
if you want to watch a movie anymore, I don't go watch a movie because it's the highest box office sales ever. That's purely to put on your imaginary resume. It's ego.
That's way too high a point in the discourse of when we talk about these movies anyway. We all sort of agree on that.
I think, until they make the movie show with Joel and Ryan the movie, I don't think we'll have to worry about everybody seeing a movie. Because I think once they make that movie, everyone's going to want to see that.
It's going to play me.
But I know.
Things over.
I was going to say that. Do we think that trend tracker? I was gonna say, do we think that before the next Avatar movies come out, before 2 and what he's got like
you're not trend tracker knows it's not supposed to bring up Avatar this late in the show.
I know, but I was just gonna say, do we think we're gonna see a re-release in the States of those movies just to refresh people, or do we think that will be taken care of on streaming services?
They'll do whatever they can make a nickel on. So
that's true.
If they can make money by doing that, they'll do it. If they can't, I don't think that they will. I don't think the younger generations, from what I've read, I don't know a single person who is excited about Avatar sequels.
I know, it's weird.
I don't know a single person. It's way too late for that. They're just way too late for it.
From a sociological and film history perspective, I am super excited to see how all of this plays out.
Yeah, anthropologically, it's going to be super interesting. But maybe there'll be hits. Titanic was supposed to be this huge bomb. Avatar was this, what is it?
Yeah, it was
a huge bomb, and somehow these all came out on top of the world. So maybe it'll happen again, but it sure feels like
it is gonna be.
We're excited to see what happens, but at the same time, I lament it. The storytelling on that scale, when you're talking about a 4th Avengers movie or 3 back-to-back Avatar sequels, is like it's so hyper commercialized, and it's so drained of any meaning to the point to be universally appealing that I just, even if it's good, should be good. The original Avatar is pretty good. I was just ripping on Endgame, but that's a good movie. I don't have a problem with it.
For what it is,
it sucks.
For what it is, it's a very good movie. Yeah.
The only movie that I like that had a sequel that is kind of out of that genre is Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, in that Marvel universe, yeah.
I saw that one.
That's a unique voice, James Gunn.
I've never seen any of the other Marvel movies. I've never seen Avatar. Guardians of the Galaxy is the only one that even interests me.
Joel just said James Gunn's a unique creative voice, and that's why those have the personality that they have. And that's the opportunity that I think is missed in a lot of these, because some of those bomb. Ang Lee's Hulk is super unpopular. You know what I mean? There's times when an auteur has come into a franchise and turned it into something that the fans didn't like, and those films are really, really hated. Rian Johnson's Star Wars sequel, and those were hits. Hulk was a huge hit. Last Jedi was a huge hit, massive hit. But the studios are equally wary of making nerds hate them for some reason, even if they're making money.
Yeah.
Because you do pay a price for it. The Han Solo movie, which is really fun, matinee joyousness, took the hit for Last Jedi being unpopular with nerds. They didn't go see that movie as a result. So there are consequences for that sort of thing, which is too bad. But
do not piss off the nerds.
But nerds, you gotta open your minds a little bit, really. I say this as one of you to a certain degree. You just have to. You don't always know what you want. It's okay to change some story slightly from what you accept as a thing. And if somebody casts a black guy in a role that was white, even if you find that objectionable, shut up about it. Have some shame.
But they wouldn't be nerds.
Don't tweet about it.
They wouldn't be nerds if they were open to changes.
I just think that's it's this ugly side of culture that I just hate.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Lighten up. They're not going to make fun, risk-taking, creative films if you hate on all of them, every decision they make before they're even in the theaters and before you've even seen them. So you just got to take a breath some of them are going to suck. Some director's going to come in, he's going to totally not get it and make a bad movie, but that's no reason to be calling for hangings and signing petitions like when you haven't even watched the movie yet. That sort of thing I really object to, obviously.
All right. Oh, Trend Tracker. Yeah, you don't bring up Avatar and things like that this late in the show.
What are you doing, Trend Tracker?
Know that. Jeez.
We might not ever.
Don't talk back to me. Don't talk back to me. All right. Sorry, I had to get all dad there.
No, I get it.
Anyway,
Shauna, it's so awesm.
Yeah, Shauna, thank you so much for joining us. This was
the movie
wonderful.
Club is so fun. We love it.
It is so much fun.
Tell us about your favorite Wall Street type film. Did we do a disservice by not talking about Boiler Room? All right,
can I say something real quick about Boiler Room? Sure. I know you're trying to wrap up.
Yeah.
The guys in Boiler Room, the characters are the hedge fund managers of today. They all saw Wall Street and thought Gecko was the hero. They worship him. They know every line that he says in the thing. The guys who have caused the crash literally doubled down on his philosophy. Mm-hmm. We didn't talk about later period movies because I thought those three right there in the late 80s were kind of this perfect storm of, tight theme, which I like on the show. But what's resulted as a result of Wall Street is just depressing. They really look up to that dude unironically, and that's a tragedy. So I just thought I'd point that out since I didn't get to in the show.
Mm-hmm. Greed is good.
Greed is good.
I mean, there's a reason
works.
There was enough people that are like, I want to know what happened to Gordon Gekko, that they made a sequel.
It's a watchable movie other than it has Shia LaBeouf in it.
Yeah. All right, so reach out to us at the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan page on Facebook, at Ask Joel and Ryan on Twitter and Instagram, and like we said, we're gonna throw up on our page on YouTube, which of course, if you're watching this, you're seeing it already. But below we'll have especially Let the Rivers Run. And,
Let the River Run. We'll have some Stuart Copeland's.
Yeah. So we'll
Wall Street Madness music. That stuff is really fun, and we'll put in as much Secret of My Success as we can, including and Walking on Sunshine. Because why not? We don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. All right. So again, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Shauna, for being here. Always wonderful to see you. And when the club meets next time, we'll have some more fun with our assigned movies. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Shauna. Bye, Beagles.
Bye, Ryan. Bye, Joel.
Bye, Beagles.
Bye, Beagles.
Thank you for listening to The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. Remember, all views and opinions represented in this podcast are personal and belong solely to the speaker and do not represent those people, institutions, or organizations that the speaker may or may not be associated with, unless explicitly stated. None of these views and opinions were intended to malign or deceive. And now, here's the producers, circa 1982, to play us out.